All right, all right, all right. Crypto Live with Bitcoin Bravado. Happy Friday, guys. I'm the Bitcoin Broski here with BTC Jack Sparrow, Kyle, and a warm welcome from Mr. Shees. How you doing, guys?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Big welcome to Mr. Cheese.
So, Sheezy, I mean, for those of you who don't, or for those listening that don't know who you are, give us the rundown. How'd you get into crypto? How'd you get affiliated with Bravado? What's your story?
Sure, man. I joined back when everybody else did. I bought Bitcoin at $20,000 in December. I thought I was like, well, if it's going to 40,000, why not? Before then, I didn't know anything. Very quickly found out that Bravado was one of the leading voices in this space as far as the content that they're putting out, as the people that they have on board and those that are in leadership running the group. So from there, I quickly joined as soon as they opened up the Bravado Black to the general public back in the spring, I think. From there, I got noticed by them as far as some of my charting, and I chart, not only cryptocurrencies, but I also have dealings in the traditional markets as well. So from there, they brought me on board as an analyst, and so here we are today.
There we go. Well, we're happy to have you on the show. Thank you so much. I know how awesome you are. I know Kyle and Ronnie also are aware, and it's cool to be able to share the Bravado analysts with the community because you guys have a ton of value to add. So, getting right into it, we've got some good news stories to cover. There's just generally bullish news all over the place. For the last month or so now, it seems like all news has generally been bullish. But the first story that we actually wanted to talk about is Morgan Stanley related. So Morgan Stanley reports that they are viewing Bitcoin as its own asset class. So to get a rundown on the actual verbiage, Bitcoin is a new institutional investment class, as stated by one of the largest institutional investing organizations in the world. So Kyle, this is kind of your world, right? Finance is your background. So what are your thoughts on this?
So Morgan Stanley is one of the most reputable and oldest investment banks in the world. And investment banks always have divisions and research teams that analyze, commodities, new asset classes, everything like that, so that they can give their investor pool and their followers the most up-to-date information on whatever assets they're covering. And they're quoted in the research that they put out in their report as saying they have a rapidly morphing thesis on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Initially, they thought Bitcoin was just a form of digital cash. Then it became a solution for issues to a financial system. Then it became a new payment system. And now ultimately they're saying that it's a new institutional investment class that they have confidence in the coming years. This is, I think another, like you're saying, Whitney, another extremely piece of bullish news when you have one of the most reputable investment groups in the world saying that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is slowly evolving and will keep progressing forward in the future. That's awesome. That's more notoriety for the space. And, it's funny because no one's paying, I want to say no one, obviously we're paying attention to crypto, but the amount of people that are paying attention to crypto now compared to 9 months ago is drastically smaller. But what we keep seeing is just this nonstop bullish flow of news, whether it be, backed exchange, ErisX, potential ETF approvals in 2019, or, investment banks getting behind the space. So all in all, good news for crypto.
Yeah, how different is that whole narrative compared to, well, let's say 6 months ago or 12 months ago, where Jamie Dimon from Goldman Sachs, or you could probably compile a super large list of some bigger names within the financial space who would call out Bitcoin for being a scam or not being interested in it or whatever. And it seems like more and more people who are behind these bigger companies are starting to learn apparently about what Bitcoin is and what Bitcoin can do, and slowly changing their tone towards what Bitcoin is. It's interesting.
For sure. Yeah, this is a big piece of bullish news, and I think the coolest part about this is that you've got an institution that's been in place since 1935. They have been an authority on the market or markets since then, and for them to be coming out and saying anything of this kind is incredibly bullish, especially like you said, Kyle, considering all of the other catalysts that are upcoming. This is just another notch on the belt as to what could be going well here. One piece of really bullish news that came out yesterday, I believe it was, is regarding Binance and Uganda. So Binance signs up 40,000 people in their first week in operation in Uganda. And I know we've got some stats to talk about regarding Uganda and Africa as a whole, but this is massive. I mean, getting 40,000 users to any platform is no small feat, but to do it in a week to a crypto exchange and what's considered a bear market, it's pretty damn great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is just awesome. I mean, it's so cool what Binance has been able to do, and I think it really just shows you kind of an indication of what's going on around the world. A lot of times I find myself when I'm explaining like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and what the deflationary aspects of a lot of these currencies, when I'm explaining it to friends, I'm like, we don't really understand in the United States because we operate on currently the world's most liquid and probably highest valued currency. But this space is gonna make its highest impact in places like Africa, in places like South America or Southeast Asia, where they're largely unbanked and their currencies are not stable and are in fact inflating at a much higher pace than the U.S. dollar. So it doesn't surprise me that when Uganda has been when Binance has really gone to Uganda and stepped up their presence, that this many people flock to the platform. But it's just another confirmation to me that there are going to be places around the world that are leading this crypto revolution that we may never have expected. So really awesome stuff coming from Binance in Uganda.
Yeah, and the opening of Africa is massive because you're talking about 1.2 billion people. And of course, all of them aren't going to have access to what's necessary to operate or trade on a Binance. But just the fact that platforms are really looking to integrate there and gain traction within those communities is huge. So, guys, what other thoughts do we have on that?
Well, it's like if you compare it, because I mean, especially in the Bravado Discord where we talk about how actually early we are to this game and to this space is if you look at the adoption rate of the internet versus the adoption rate of cryptocurrencies in general, I think this is just another step in the right direction. Obviously, the more adoption, the more users, then the better it'll go. You know what I'm saying? Like it's as if this is just another step in the right direction. So this is super great news, regardless of what price does or doesn't do. Or the market cap of the entire cryptocurrency asset class, regardless of what that does, this is a step in the right direction to adoption rates.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's only and Binance is not the only one that's gonna cater to this large, you said 1.2 billion people in Africa, because I just received an article here that says that Paxful, which is a peer-to-peer exchange that is based in the US, is seeing significant growth from their users in Africa. So they've seen about 225% in volume increase from their users in Africa. Most of it is coming from Uganda or South Africa. The thing is, and I think that's what Kyle already said, is these countries, they have unstable governments, they have unstable currencies, and what Bitcoin is showing and and proving time after time again is that for such countries and such environments, Bitcoin can actually provide a solution to government influence. Because if governments fail, Bitcoin is there to kind of step in, and we're gonna see that happen again and again. We've seen it in Greece, we've seen it in Turkey, and we're gonna see it in Africa probably as well.
Yeah, one thing that I want to add, just because the 10th anniversary of Bitcoin's white paper was just a couple of days ago. There was a great resource put out by Anthony Pompliano and Murad Makhmudov. I'm probably butchering his name, but they put out a really good podcast explaining Bitcoin in detail. So for any of you who have thoughts or questions about the importance of Bitcoin or what it could mean globally, I'd encourage you all to check that out, because it was a very informative podcast. And a great resource, especially for anyone who's new to cryptocurrency, or if anyone ever asks you that question, why should I bother with Bitcoin? So that was a good resource. Moving into a piece of interesting news, I would say. I think, and we're going to get into the media and how they portray things, and what's going on behind the scenes that would make them convey a message a certain way. But an article came out recently that it stated that Ethereum founder Vitalik Buterin says his creation, Ethereum, can't succeed unless he takes a step back. A lot of people are misinterpreting this and have been misinterpreting his comments over the past 6 to 8 months as Vitalik is leaving Ethereum, which he has come out and said that he's not. But I wanted us to talk about this because obviously Ethereum has had its struggles. It's got its own problems. It's a company like any other. But how are you guys viewing this article? What do you guys think of all of this?
Yeah, I actually kind of have this is interesting timing for me, because I had a cool conversation with Joel, Bitcoin Birch, early last week, and we were talking about achieving parity as an organization and as a company. And what I think that discussion kind of enlightened me on is that if you're really trying to operate as a company or as a community like Ethereum is for the future, then you don't want any one person to be able to demand the outcome or how something ends up resulting. So like for Vitalik, if Vitalik got hit by a bus tomorrow, I think everyone, Ethereum holders alike, would freak out, and everyone would be like, oh my God, is Ethereum going down now? Which is probably not the case. But the fact of the matter
is, just to jump in though, that actually occurred, didn't it? Someone put out a tweet that said Vitalik had died and the price of ETH tanked. I don't know when exactly that was, but I believe that was last year at some point in time.
Yeah, I do remember this. He quickly though stated on his Twitter that he didn't die. It was funny. It was funny to see it happen. Yeah.
But just to highlight your point. But anyway, Scott, continue.
Yeah, well, there you go. That's exactly what I was talking about. Is I think that what Vitalik was getting at was the fact that it's like I'm so polarized with Ethereum that it's not good for the actual decentralization of Ethereum itself, because this doesn't need any one person to operate. It doesn't have a CEO, and it's just better for the protocol and the community in general if it's more of a consensus rather than what does Vitalik think. So I think this is really just a blown up story for no reason. But Vitalik is basically just saying I have total respect for the guy. People say a lot of things about Ethereum, but the way he conducts himself and his plans for the future, he sounds totally committed to Ethereum. He just doesn't want to be like this, MVP all the time for it or whatever. So,
Yeah, well, and you're right. I mean, there are a lot of things where he's taken the lead, and I mean, people look to him as the central authority. And like you said, when it comes to a business, you want to make sure that it's able to sustain. So I think this is a very logical thing for him to talk about, but just the way that it's portrayed is so counterintuitive to the actual message.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
It's always going to be a difficult subject when it comes to leadership and decentralization. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen Bitcoin Cash, for example, with Roger Ver, who is really like the forefront of the company. But in reality, he really has not that much to do with Bitcoin Cash when it comes to development. But people will always, combine these things together. And I think when it comes to trying to give a value to a network, it's far more important to actually look at how much it's used and how many developers are around, and how far did they penetrate the market of crypto. And I think for Ethereum, it's a pretty stupid idea, in my honest opinion, to think that Ethereum is going to go back to $5. If you think about the fact that literally every project that starts out within the crypto community, except if they're some kind of like fork of Bitcoin or whatever, they all start with some kind of first commit that involves Ethereum in some kind of way. Everyone is exploring from there, and then they think, okay, there's limitations to what Ethereum can, and I want to achieve something that's not possible currently with Ethereum. Then they start to shift away to cater to their own specific needs. But once it comes to a one-stop shop for a blockchain project that involves smart contracts, I think people will still come to Ethereum, and Ethereum has a runway. People thought that Ethereum could deliver what they expected to be delivered way earlier. And if you actually thought about it, it was impossible, because we all knew that Ethereum was not going to deliver 1,000 transactions per second anytime soon. So the thing for Ethereum will be is how well will they adapt and develop their second layer, or their 2.0. And I think they will deliver just like any other platform out there will deliver. And by that time, the whole general consensus and how people look at Ethereum is going to be super different. So we're always going to have these, overextended price action. So I think we're at a bottom right now for Ethereum. We may go a little bit deeper, but then the next top will always be 50% above what it's actually worth valuing it at. So yeah.
Max, since you're saying that, just a bit of a curveball. I know we didn't really plan for this, but could you bring up an ETH chart? Look at price action right now. I think that could be beneficial to people, because there are a lot of people that are they're enjoying playing ETH on BitMEX. I know that it's been very profitable for a lot of people with its volatility. So what's the chart looking like?
Let me pull up the ETH. I had another ETH chart, but I don't know where it is. All right, so Ethereum versus Bitcoin. I know a lot of people like to chart it against USD as well, because there's a lot of volume to Ethereum. So what exactly do you want to know, broski?
I'd like to know, I mean, right now, how is it looking to you? I mean, are we looking like it's going to take another leg down? Is it looking like it's accumulating, ready for a breakout? What are your thoughts?
So what I've been looking at for the last, I don't know, 3 weeks almost, is for the people who are listening to the podcast, I'm looking at this square box, accumulation box of Ethereum that's sitting at 0.03 to 0.031, well, 0.032 Bitcoin. And it's been ranging for almost 3 weeks without real movement. Honestly, if we zoom out, I honestly think that ever since we came from our all-time high, we haven't been ranging sideways this long as we've been doing right here, and we are actually building this sideways accumulation box above our low that we printed in September. So personally, I'm long Ethereum here, because I think there's going to be a storm of articles that are going to get released about Ethereum 2.0. The moment I said that I expected this, we actually saw a few articles getting released. So I think that's slowly gonna penetrate the news segments on various outlets. So yeah, I'm long here. You still there?
Yep, I'm here. Did you have any thoughts on ETH?
Yeah, I mean, because like as a chartist myself, like this is what you want, right? So a chart's either doing one of three things. It's either trending up, right, or down. It's either trending, it's either distributing, which you find at the top of moves at all-time highs, and it distributes out, and all that's doing is it's just releasing momentum from the move up, right? So, and then you've got a trend down. And then you get what we have here with, most of the cryptocurrency market. I mean, you look at one chart, you've basically seen them all, and you see this whole just sideways action for, since probably mid-September or so. And I was looking at the spread on Bitcoin month over month. And I mean, it's from October from September, the spread decreased 50%, which from the month previously was another 50%. So, I mean, what we're seeing in real time here, although it feels like it's going quite slow, is we're seeing the brakes applied to this downward momentum, this downward sideways action from, $20,000 an all-time high, and that's the spot where you want to buy. I mean, yeah, we could totally go lower, and then we would just wait for it, the brakes to be applied again, and we would buy more at that point. But I don't think that you get a whole lot of action like this very often. There's going to be a lot of people who look back and say, yeah, we wish we bought it then. And maybe we go up to new all-time highs. Maybe we go up, for Ethereum, maybe it goes back up to, 800, 600, $800, and then back down here to where we're at now. But from a chart perspective, this is what you want to see. You want to see, and before you start to really buy and accumulate, you want to see the brakes applied from that downward momentum, and that is the accumulation phase, as we've already talked about.
Yeah. So to maybe visually show what Cheese is talking about is that if we go back all the way to the beginning of the year, like February, we've been coming down, and then we had a little bit of accumulation right here, and we actually jumped, but it didn't last that long, And this is really the first time ever since February where we've been in at the bottom of a move and been going sideways for a prolonged amount of time, and this has been going on since the beginning of September right now. So I think that we could be wrong and we could go lower, like she's saying, but it's probably our best risk reward. If we go lower, our stop loss is super close to where our entry is, and then we'll wait for the next opportunity where we see accumulation going on again, because this, for all it means, it could be redistribution. You never know whether it's accumulation or redistribution. It's one of two things. So if it's redistribution, we're going to go lower. If it's accumulation, we're going to see an uptrend forming, and then we're going to wait until we see the distribution happening that Shees was talking about.
And just to add to that, let's just pull up here on the fly. Let's pull up a random chart. Trying to think one that probably launched in the beginning of the year. Okay, pull up ONT. Ontology versus Bitcoin, the Binance chart. And this is what I mean. Like, if you've seen one chart, you've seen them all, because as much as we don't want to think it is, the entire cryptocurrency market is all correlated, right? So if you have the big picture, then you know where it's going to go. And if you look at ONT here, you've got this move up, from they first went on the market beginning of March, I think.
Yeah, March 2019.
And then it kind of stagnated, and then you had this huge move up to its all-time high, and then it distributed there from the end of April to about the beginning of July there, and then the downward momentum really started, and now we're back to this accumulation box, right? So so for everyone out there who's listening or watching, if you want to know how to read a chart, this is it. You're looking for either trending up or down, you're looking for distribution, and then you're looking for accumulation. If you know those three things, you're already ahead of most of the traders out there who don't know anything about a chart.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk right now because Hangouts switches between the different screens. But to explain what Cheese was talking about, he was talking about it came on the market here in March, and it then went up and did a huge move here, and this is our distribution that happened, and then it started its downtrend that lasted until the midway of August, and now we're expecting that this is going to be accumulation down here, right. And usually after accumulation, you're going to see an uptrend again to the upside. If it's redistribution, of course, we're going to dump down here and see a lot more deeper lows to it. But that's basically how it looks like.
And then to just call out, a lot of people, like, they yell manipulation and all that. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure it exists within this market. But from reading a chart, like the charts from this market to the Dow Jones or the S&P 500, whatever chart you want to trade, whatever asset class, gold, silver, I mean, it's all, if you know those three things that we just described there, then you're light years ahead of anyone who just follows the news.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, I know there's some other topics we want to cover. For those of you who are just tuning in, thank you for joining us for Crypto Live with Bitcoin Bravado. We have just covered a little bit of the news. We've also given a rundown of ETH, which we don't do regularly. There just happened to be a good tie-in with one of the news stories. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that little overview that Max and Cheese just gave us. Obviously, two of the most knowledgeable chartists you will ever come across. So if you are tuning in, make sure you're taking some notes when these guys are talking, because it's an easy way to make some money. So moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and that is proof of work season. POW coins, proof of work coins, are something that we have seen across the board just flying as of late. You've had Raven and Haven and Loki and BitTube. Yes, I know Loki isn't technically proof of work, but there's a proof of work component. These projects are popping off across the board. And, I've got a theory. And I know it's a theory that I've talked about with a few different people. Some agree, some disagree. But ultimately, the return to community-driven projects is a very real thing. We're seeing, steps taken by Binance to say that they're not going to be charging exorbitant listing fees, and or they're going to be more transparent in the fees that they're charging. And that's leading to an uptake in projects that are getting noticed, right? So Decred being listed recently, Raven being listed recently. These are all things that are very they're coming to the forefront, and they're drawing our, capturing our attention. So I wanted us to discuss that briefly, to see if you guys have any theories on proof of work coins. What are your thoughts around all of this? I know we're going to look at a couple of charts to see how some are popping off, but do you guys have any thoughts on proof of work coins or mineable coins that are on your radars?
Yeah. Proof of work coins for me personally are a very legitimate way of valuation for a coin. A lot of these coins that are out there, non-proof of work coins that started out with an ICO, they got a lot of money and a lot of hype, which results in a chance that these coins are probably overvalued. And proof of work coins, they start out generally with no investments. They're honest, they're community driven. So if their price increases, it's usually because there is a community behind it, and because they've all contributed to these projects, which for me kind of makes me feel that a lot of the valuations for these projects are a lot more fair. So if you're talking about Loki, Haven Protocol, there's a bunch that I like a lot. I think their valuation, once they get listed onto bigger exchanges, comes because there's a whole group of people behind them, from developers to believers to people who want to use it or want to use their skill set to bring the project a lot further. So I like them a lot.
Can we bring up a couple of charts? I know that we talked about that. Could you bring up the let's start with Raven, because that's one we've covered on the show. Obviously, it caught a massive pump, but just looking at that, if we could zoom out and look at the daily and how a project like that looks as it sits. So
it's really interesting, because when we look at this chart, we really see there's no volume. It was probably trading on some smaller exchanges, and the price movement kind of correlates with what the rest of the market was doing. It saw a pump in like the end of March, April, and then it came down. And I'm not going to say there's a correlation between price action and charts and proof of work coins. But if you go and look at a couple of proof of work coins as of late, you'll see most of them did at least like 5x, 4x, 10x. It's pretty sick. Currently, Raven did. How much did Raven do? Raven data. Oh, how much percent is that? From the bottom, it did like 350%. Is that correct? Yeah.
No, because it went up to about 1,000 sats.
Yeah, so it probably did a little bit more. This is a chart from CoinMarketCap, so it probably doesn't capture everything. But yeah, I did like a 3, 4, 5x, something along those lines, and you'll see that in a lot of other charts of proof of work coins as of late. Currently, I wouldn't know if I would buy Raven coin, but yeah, I mean, it's probably worth it. And what you see in a lot of these coins that they did a little pre-pump as well, and we're now resting on the pre-pump level. So there must have been some inside trading here, I guess.
Well, and you know, for like you said, a lot of these projects, they sit on low liquidity exchanges for a long period of time, where basically the only people accumulating are miners, right? So you've got these people that are throwing hash at these projects for months on end. You know, Raven's Genesis block was mined in January, and they've spent. I mean, it's a completely community driven project. You know, Bruce Fenton put out a really great update today, or maybe it was yesterday, but recently, about their asset creation, and just talking about how it'll take as long as it takes to get it right. You know, it may come at the end of it may come at the beginning here of November. It may come mid-November. It's going to come when it's ready. And I think that that's one of the coolest things about these projects is they're going on a fluid roadmap. They're not structuring their project to pump, right? They don't really, their milestones are important, but they're important because they're going to get done right. They're not important because it's meant to, you know, astronomically drive up the price. So what you're seeing with a lot of these projects is the big community following and the active devs that are on there are leading to actually quality products that are then being recognized and getting the market share that they should. They're getting the, you know, the price recognition that they should. So one chart that I wanted us to look at is HXV, Haven. So Haven is a project that has been on a lot of people's radars for a very long time. Again, another big community project. But this is one that it's made some transitions from exchange to exchange. So what's the chart looking like?
The chart on Haven is looking ridiculous. I remember researching this project a long time ago, and I was really fond of it just from reading through their white paper. It was trading at some small exchanges, so it was really hard to actually, you know, like I'm always debating with myself whether I want to get my hands dirty on these less known exchanges. But this is one that I didn't buy, and I regret it because it did like 677% from the bottom. Honestly, to me, when I'm looking at this chart, it kind of looks like it's just trending up in a very steep way. I think
can you switch that to a weekly view?
Let me switch that to a weekly view. Yeah.
Wow.
So honestly, when I look at this chart, I don't see a reason for it not going up a lot more. I think it's gonna probably consolidate a little bit because the volume is dropping here, and we've seen a big surge already. But when I'm looking at charts like these, I kind of think that it's probably gonna consolidate here a little bit, and then probably gonna break all-time highs.
Yeah,
it's really tough to chart these once. I don't know where is it listed at.
So I have no idea about that. But
so Haven right now is on Bittrex and Trade Ogre and Cryptopia.
Speaking to that chart a little bit, just going back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, you've got that downward momentum, and then you've got those 3 weeks there of accumulation, and then, you know, back off to the races again. So I imagine we're going to start seeing a lot more charts like this.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So one last chart before we move on here. One last chart that we wanted to take a look at was BitTube, which is just YouTube on the blockchain, if you want to call it that. But what it is really a profitable coin to mine right now. If you go to whattomine.com, you will see BitTube #1 or very high up there on most profitable coins to mine. And this is something that, you know, we've been following for a while now. Those of you who are watching Crypto Live with Bitcoin Bravado, if you have an interest in mining or you'd like to learn more about proof of work coins, what I would encourage you to do is tune in to Miners Oasis on this same YouTube channel, Bitcoin Bravado's YouTube channel. We want to make sure that we're providing quality, free content to capture everyone in the space that we can that's looking for information. So if this is something that you find interesting, we dedicate an hour each week to these types of projects with Whale Bearman and Crypto Chris Walken, who are two absolute authorities on mining and proof of work coins. So before we get into to BitTube, I just want to throw that out there, that little little shill. So join us for that show when we have it on. Anyways, back to the BitTube chart.
All right, so BitTube chart is actually a chart that looks, it's a lot easier to chart, that's for sure. Currently, BitTube is trading at 13,013 satoshis, and it did a really nice pump in September to a high of 1,800 satoshis. After which it did another pump, but it didn't really reach the same high, although it did show a bearish divergence on the RSI. Bearish divergence on the RSI is when the close, in this case, of a candle prints a lower RSI level, but the close of the price is higher than the close of the RSI of the candle with the prior higher RSI right here. So after this bear divergence, we've seen a little drop in price, which is currently doing. But what we see now, it's forming a hidden bullish RSI divergence, because the RSI here is lower than it was here, but the price is significantly higher. I think that BitTube could actually retrace a little bit further. I would probably, with the current price action, expect it to at least drop to probably 1,230 satoshis, or worst case, and I would still actually be bullish on it and buy it, is probably around 1,100 satoshis. If it drops below 1,100 to 1,050 satoshis, I would probably ditch it and await for price action and new formations to set up, because then we would probably we may actually see a lot lower prices, maybe all the way to 780 satoshis.
You know, and a lot of these projects, as we wrap this part of the show up, a lot of these projects are favorites to get listed on major exchanges soon, right? Because they're bringing with them communities, they're bringing trading volume, they're bringing potentially users. That's why a lot of these projects get listed on exchanges, right? Exchanges are looking to make money off of allowing things to be traded there. So if you've got a community that's behind a project and they're going to get on there and trade their coins, then there's the ability to make those fees that some of these companies are looking to make. So I think that there is a very high probability for a ton of proof of work coins finding their way onto the Binances and potentially Coinbase later on as this market ramps up. But moving away from that, I want to move into one coin that or project that Kyle wants to discuss, and it is Boss. So let's jump right into PHX.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Whitney. I do like those proof of work coins as well, and I'm looking to enter BitTube here around where Ronnie was signaling. But yeah, anyways, PHX, Red Pulse Phoenix, just had their platform actually launch in the middle of October. Essentially what it's aiming to be is almost a Wikipedia gig economy, like writing creation platform, where content creators can go on Red Pulse and sign up to be actual writers, and they can be compensated in PHX token for their contributions. So yeah, as I said, it launched 2 weeks ago, and it has a user base, and it has content creators that are flocking to the platform, because until about middle to late November, there will be $5,000 worth of PHX distributed every day to content creators on the site. That will lower after mid-November to $2,500 of PHX distributed, but that's just to incentivize content creators to actually go there and start pushing out content. And like I said, the only thing they will be way they will be compensated is with PHX token. So I really just like the idea of this product, and it's more geared. I think it was initially only made available to Chinese citizens, but that's opened up to anyone in the world can access this site. So it's a big month. It's a big 30 days here for Red Pulse. And if we pull up a chart, which I don't have the screen sharing aspect on mine, but what I can tell you is that PHX, it went live. Their new site went live on October 16th. And since then is up nearly 100% to 456 Satoshis It reached a peak high on October 26th of 1,000 Satoshis. So it did a 5X and came down pretty quickly. But I like what it's doing now. It retraced to the 0.786 fib, right around 400 Satoshis, and got some nice volume research back into the market today. So it's bounced a little bit. It's up about 4 to 5% today to 456 Satoshis. I'm looking to be a buyer from here all the way down to 400 Satoshis with a stop loss around 385, 390 Satoshis. So I really like this product. It's one of those things that I think like crypto is just so exciting for me because we're seeing so much institutional activity, whether it be Morgan Stanley or Binance going into Uganda, or we're seeing all this infrastructure being put in place. And then not only that, but we're seeing each individual crypto and each individual community put so much more infrastructure in place for their own products, their own offerings. The past year, we've just talked about hype pieces, what is going to drive the next surge of money into a crypto. But I think what Red Pulse is leading the way on, and what a lot of other coins will do in the next year, is their products can be out, and we're going to get to see if they have communities getting behind it and using their platform. And for me, Red Pulse is something that I understand the product. The product is now operational, and they're driving people and content creators to their platform as we speak. So bullish on PHX, and I'm looking to enter here and hopefully reap the benefits of that through the end of the year.
It's insane how much volume this coin did. Absolutely insane. I mean, I just pulled it up on CoinMarketCap just like a week ago. I think it did 130 million daily volume. We're talking about a coin that's currently valued at 24 million market cap. That's ridiculously insane. I would probably assume there's a lot of people who pretty much know that this coin is going to be worth a lot more in the future.
Well, and we had the bullish news out of China. It might have been right around the 26th to coincide with that pump, to kind of be the catalyst that set it off initially. But I think we covered that in the show earlier this week. There was the good news and continued good news out of China. So that bodes well for any of those P5 projects that have launched on the Neo blockchain.
And one thing we touched on earlier, this the more that I'm looking into projects that are on utilizing the Neo blockchain, the more bullish I become on Neo, because I love Red Pulse. TKY is going to be an industry leader in identification, and we're talking about ONT. And what was the other one you mentioned, Whitney?
Deep brain chain.
Deep brain chain.
AI.
For AI, it's like, we have some absolutely incredible crypto and then blockchain utilizing companies now operating on Neo. So for me, I'm just long-term bullish on Neo, seeing some of the projects they have listed and utilizing their protocol. So, bullish on Neo as well.
Just to throw a quick tag on there, of all of those projects that you just mentioned, the only one that's not listed on Binance yet is Deep Brain Chain, DBC. So just out there for anyone who's paying attention. So I know, just to kind of wrap things up today, we've got another 5 minutes or so. We wanted to talk about overall market outlook, because we are all bullish as can be at the moment. But Kyle, why don't you spearhead this bullish outlook that we're all kind of feeling right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do a little more like a higher look at things. Then I think Ronnie can and Shees can deep dive more into some of the technicals. But we're kind of establishing a November outlook for Bitcoin. And then, when you establish an outlook for Bitcoin, you're pretty much doing it for the market as a whole. So our outlook for, the close of the year and November in specific is relatively bullish right now for Bitcoin. In the past 90 days or so, the past 3 months, we've seen the price of Bitcoin opened around 7,700 in I believe that was August, and now we're at 6,300. So it's dropped roughly 18% in 90 days. It's about 0.2% per day. And although we've seen that pretty negative price action over the course of the past 90 days, the volume has continually decreased over the course of those 90 days. That for us is a pretty simple indication that when price action is negatively correlated with volume, it's an indication of a reversal coming, or for whatever you're charting. So that's a positive sign for us. We've seen consolidation, low volatility, which is what you want to see, as accumulation may actually be occurring at this point. And then from just analysis on the monthly chart for Bitcoin, what we've seen is, like we said, the last 90 days, the price has been going down fairly consistently and fairly slowly. This can be considered a rising three charting pattern, where you see three candles descending, but not extending over the course of the prior bullish candle. So you see, if you're looking at a monthly chart for Bitcoin, which, do we have one pulled up here? We don't at this point in time. But if you look at the past 4 months for Bitcoin, we had a bullish candle for July, and then three candles following that were bearish, extending now into November. But they didn't cross the original open, which was at 63.83 for July. So that usually indicates that a bullish month would follow those three bearish months, or three bearish candles, excuse me. So a combination of those things, along with Bakkt Exchange going live in late November and them offering physically delivered Bitcoin futures contracts by December 12th, just everything lines up for us to think that November is going to be a good month, and it should be pretty bullish.
Yeah, I totally agree there. These are the, let's see, can I switch? Yeah. These are the three candles that Kyle was talking about right here. That's what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So what I want to show you to the people who are viewing the live stream right now, and what Kyle was talking about, is how our volume has been steadily decreasing over time. If we actually look on the charts, we've seen volume having its all-time high on average. So I've created a moving average on the volume on the daily on the Bitcoin chart here, and the high of the moving average, so the moving average is the average volume over the last 30 days from the point you're at on the chart, was probably on Bitstamp. It was in mid-February, and after that we've seen a decline in volume, and literally there's not a lot of volume left. So if we zoom in, we've seen we're talking about the $7,300 that Kyle was talking about, and all we've seen happen actually since we've coming down is that this volume has been dropping as well, and it's coming further down and further down. We've had one day with a lot of volume actually right here, which was the day that we had the tether panic, the tether sell-off, and we're slowly grinding back up here. We're probably gonna be ranging here until we either break 6K or we break 6.8K. That's probably what I foresee. And man, my brain is hurting. I'm a bit ill fevered right now. Yeah, I'm starting to warm up. What else did you want me to show on that chart, Kyle?
Sheez, do you have any comments on the chart? Unmute your microphone.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Ronnie, pull up I just put a chart in the Google Hangout chats. Pull that up. This is interesting because this is the total market cap. And I've drawn this pennant here, which I'm sure everyone who trades cryptocurrencies is kind of watching and anticipating. But I think we're gearing up for a move in some way. So, Ronnie, if you want to talk to that a little bit, I know they can't see the screen right now, but.
Now he's muted.
Now he's muted. Oh, there we go.
Ronnie.
Your microphone, Ronnie.
Yeah, like I said, I'm heating up, man.
Thank God.
Thanks for hanging in there, man. Thanks for hanging in there.
I feel my fever coming back up. Sorry about that. Yeah, so Go ahead. We're looking at this pennant, and once this pennant is coming to an end, we're probably going to see some volatility. We've been saying these kind of things for months. It feels like, but there's going to be a moment where volatility is going to increase, and this is a beautiful pennant with actually, you know, 3 decent touches on the bottom and a couple of touches on the upside, and it's not going to take long before we're going to have some kind of decision where it's going to. And this is the total market cap, you know. And when we're looking back at these charts that we were looking at earlier about distribution and accumulation, accumulation usually happens on the bottom of a chart, and this is looking like the bottom of the chart. So I'm personally willing to say I'm willing to go long here on the entire market if we combine all the narratives that have been thrown at us and our own reasoning on the market. I would probably say that we're going to see some bullish momentum coming back to the market, and we're going back up. If not, it's not big of an issue, because we put our bets on the market, but we also know where the market and our ideas get invalidated, and then we get out. So maybe we make a 5% loss, but what's a 5% loss versus maybe 50% gains? You know, it's a super decent risk reward right there.
Yeah, that's a very important point too. It's something we don't touch on, and we probably need to spend a future episode discussing. But yeah, it's like we make these decisions and create these narratives and hypotheses to trade, and we're very understanding that we may lose. We're not trying to win every time, but if you're in this market or you're a trader, you have to make calculated bets. And our calculated bet for November is that it should be pretty bullish, and it should be profitable to have crypto exposure. So if we're wrong, we're wrong. But like Ronnie said, we know where we're invalidated, and we probably need to spend more time in the future discussing how we actually trade and get down to it. But yeah, that's just a good point to add on there, that, you know, we might be wrong, but we'll be right again. So.
Yeah, and, you know, I think that's a good point for us to wrap up on. I do want to say quickly that we are very appreciative of all of you that continue to tune in and watch us live, and then jump on the podcast and check us out there. We would love for you to give us your feedback. If there are projects that you'd like us to discuss, if there are questions that you have for us, you want us to cover on air, if there's anything that we can do to better serve the community, we want to make sure that we can do that. So just DM us and let us know. Also, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button, smash up the likes, do the YouTube thing, get us on the platforms where you see the podcast, and show us some love there. Obviously, every like that we get, every sub that we get, it helps boost the podcast rankings and get out to more people. So we appreciate your assistance and support in helping us grow the podcast and the YouTube community that we've got going here. And we want to be able to continue to serve you. So for those of you who are on with us, we appreciate you. And for those of you who will be catching us later, just remember, if you want to catch us live, we're Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. 9 times out of 10, there's little instances where things may deviate. And I did see some questions about, you know, where's Birch? Birch is out in Vegas enjoying World CryptoCon, pressing palms and kissing babies. He will be back next week to join us for the live streams and the podcast. But we hope that you have enjoyed catching some of the Bravado analysts, and we'll have more on as this show progresses so that you can get to know more of the Bravado team and all that they are capable of. So until next week, guys, we're going to wrap it up for this week's editions of Crypto Live with Bitcoin Bravado. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you all soon.
Yeah, have a good weekend, everybody.
Enjoy your weekends.